People will look on social media and see that you have your family and your friends and your hobbies and your life and your car and your this and that, blah, blah, blah. None of that matters though. None of it at all. It doesn't change the fact that sometimes inside of our heads, we're just not doing well. Our mental health is critical to not only our lives, but the lives of the people we live with and work with, and the lives that we touch. Hello, and welcome to the Mindset and Self-Mastery Show. I'm your host, Nick McGowan. Today on the show, I want to talk about mental health because May is Mental Health Awareness Month. Now, I wish Mental Health Awareness Month was every single month, but in some ways, it really is. Every single month, every single week, every single day, minute, and hour even. I think our mental health plays a major part and role of the work that we do in the world, how we move throughout the world, the things that we do. And I want to touch on something that a lot of people will bring up at times, sometimes clients, sometimes even guests when we're talking, be it on the show or after the fact. But people at times will think, I'm broken. I've thought that before too. I've thought that many, many times actually, that I am just straight up broken. And what that really comes from is me just not knowing what is broken or off. It's not that I'm broken. It's that there are things that just feel broken or don't feel like they're working really as well as I want them to. Now, you may experience that and you may not. I assume most people that listen to this show probably experience a good chunk of the things that we talk about on the show, either just on the solo episodes or with guests. A lot of us go through this stuff where on the surface, we look really great. It looks like we're living life, we're enjoying, we're successful in whatever we're doing. We have our families, our friends. We have all the things that, for the most part, really go really well with social media. People will look on social media and see that you have your family and your friends and your hobbies and your life and your car and your this and that, blah, blah, blah. None of that matters, though. Actually, none of it at all. I mean, having some friends and some family and people that care about you, that absolutely matters. Having hobbies and things that are important to you, that absolutely matters. But what I mean by it doesn't matter is that it doesn't change the fact that sometimes inside of our heads, we're just not doing well. And I'm really glad that May is the month for that. The reason why I say I'm glad for that is because May is sort of like the beginning of spring to me. Where I grew up in Pennsylvania, we saw all 4 seasons of the year, and it was awesome. Literally 3 months for every single quarter was a new season. Obviously, there was some overlap at times or whatever, but I pretty much always saw a season and could always expect that the new season was going to come. When I moved around the country, not as much in Oregon, but specifically in Florida and in New Mexico, we don't always see all of those seasons. Especially in Florida. It's basically like spring sometimes in the morning, sometimes it's winter in the morning for an hour, and then it's just summer pretty much the rest of the day, even when it's a different season. But mentally, our season can last a lot longer. We can be mentally disrupted. We can be hurt. We can be unsure of what's going on or really fighting with things that are still inside of us, that are still processing or need to be fully processed from things that have happened from sometimes decades ago. So I bring up the fact that I have thought this and other people have, and you most likely have as well, that we are broken in some sort of way. But I want to challenge that. What if you're not broken? But what if you're just patterned in such a way? Now, our brains, and specifically our subconscious, is there to be able to protect us and to keep us safe and keep us moving and active. And for the most part, when we feel like we're broken, that pattern that we're looking for that will get us out of something is really hard when we're stuck in a pattern. Just our overall way of thinking about things. You know, those people that are typically real shitty about something, or just seem to always be upset and pissed off. I want to guarantee that that's probably not their natural state. I could give you an example with myself. There are times where you can absolutely tell if I'm irritated. And there are times where I don't really understand that I'm irritated because there's something that's going on in the background. Now, I've done a lot of work with this, so those triggers and things that come up, I'm more aware of that, but there are still things that just creep along. And I'm unaware of just being irritated. Even at a slight level, I know that I am, but I don't know what the thing is yet. So I need to work on it, work through it, etc. When we're stuck in our patterns and we can't get out of those patterns because we can't see that we're stuck in them, then we're just perpetually there. So that person who is constantly pissed off or shitty or annoying, again, that's probably not their natural state. There's something that's holding them back. There's something that's keeping them that way. And I bring up that you probably know these people because just about every single one of us does. That there's somebody, maybe it's a family member or a coworker or something. You're like, that's just how they are. They're just naturally irritated. No, that's probably not the case. Like myself, I am naturally joyous and like a little kid, just excited about things. But when I'm irritated and I'm not feeling so well, mentally specifically, then I'm not like that at all. I'm just really irritable and not very fun to be around. And again, I've worked on that over the course of my life and specifically over these past few years. But still, I can almost guarantee some family and friends and people that know me closely are like, yeah, there are certain times where just stay the fuck away from him. And that doesn't sit well with me. I don't like that people would feel that way. Or if somebody would say, well, I don't want to go anywhere near him because he's constantly angry or whatever else. There have been different times where I've been really upset about things that are going on in life. And from a mental health perspective, just not doing well at all. Again, because of those patterns, the way that I've thought about things, the way that I've looked at things, and the way that I just get stuck in those patterns. Because our mental health really stems from those habitual thought patterns. Everything we do will come through that lens, in a sense, of what is it that we normally think about? How do we normally go about this? And what's the best approach with what's going on right now? And there are certain times it doesn't logically make sense to us because we're just basing things off of those patterns. This also ties into our cognitive processes and our overall behaviors. All of this ties together because when we think about things and we're in a bad spot mentally, then the way that we react or respond to the world physically or even emotionally or really any sort of way is all going to tie back to the overall mindset and the overall mental health that we're currently working through. So with May being Mental Health Awareness Month, I wanted to really shine light specifically on mental health. Now, the Awareness Month has actually been an awareness month for mental health since 1949, which I got to be honest, when I first read that, I was shocked because this wasn't something that I thought about for May for most of my life. It seems like there's a national day for just about everything. There's a national month that coincides with other national months. Like I'm pretty sure May is also several other things for national months. And that's totally fine because again, we only have 12 of those months and I get that. But this is a thing that I never really knew about growing up because most people didn't really talk about it. I was born in the early 80s. So by the early 90s and even early 2000s, people weren't talking about these things as much. There was a little bit more in the early 2000s, especially in the middle 2000s, et cetera, where people really started to have more of these conversations. And I think mostly because of my generation that were like, hold up, time out. What happened was not cool. We need to do something about this. And I'm really glad that we have this month to be able to talk about this because as we go into the rest of spring, into the summer, fall, winter, et cetera, throughout the rest of the year, I want you to be mindful of your overall mental health. Now you might say, Nick, that's a lot to just be mindful of because every single day there's something going on. And I get that. That's also why I bring it up. It's to be mindful throughout each day of what's happening. How are you feeling? What are you thinking? And not beating yourself up about the things that are going on. Just letting yourself flow through it. I'll be real personal with you right now. I'm actively going through a pretty difficult and challenging chapter of my life. And over the past couple of weeks, I've been going through this with my own mental health. To be mindful of, what are you feeling right now? What are you thinking right now? Sometimes I need to take a 20-minute break and just play my acoustic guitar, or go walk outside for a minute, or talk to a family member because there's just stuff that's going on that I just need to talk with somebody about. Or also my mental health coach or my other practitioners that I work with. Now, it's not like I can just pick up the phone and call them instantly because they're professionals and they have other clients and all that sort of stuff. But I'm going through this as well. And with May being Mental Health Awareness Month, I think it's important for us to just be aware of what is going on with our mental health. Now, the whole point to Mental Health Awareness Month in May is to be able to bring awareness to not only our mental health, but the different resources and stigmas and just all the things that are out there about that, and just keep the conversation going. But from this perspective for you, I want you to just be mindful of your mental health. That's it. It's really easy. Think about just how you're feeling mentally and what's going on in your head. A good thing that I've started to do, I'd say over the past year or so, is once I wake up, I ask myself, how you doing? How you feeling? Are you good or are you shitty? Because I've realized that part of my being is I can be in a really good spot as soon as I wake up, kind of like jump out of bed and be ready to go, or I cannot be in such a great spot. And typically it's because of the things that happened or didn't happen the day before. Did I get enough time to spend me time? Did I spend enough time on the things I wanted to? Did I feel fulfilled in the stuff that I did? And sometimes that just doesn't line up. So it lingers and just drags over. So by the time I get into the next day, it's still there. It's kind of nagging at me in a sense. So for Mental Health Awareness Month, let's just be aware of our mental health. Let's figure out what's going on and then work through it step by step by step. So that doesn't have to be a big thing where you say, oh, I'm in such a terrible spot. I need to talk to 40,000 people and I need to process all these things for like 9 hours a day. You absolutely can, but you may not need to. Just being aware of what's going on can sometimes be good enough to get you to the spot where you say, I need a little bit more help in this area. I found that with myself, and I've even found that with clients. They'll get to a point where they go, you know what? This keeps coming back. This is a pattern. This is the thing that I no longer want to be a part of my life. Okay, so what do I do? Who do I talk to? How do I go about this? What has to happen next? And letting yourself be in the flow of that and just taking each day step by step. Instead of saying, I need to be fixed and everything needs to be done right now. Sure, you can feel that way. It's really not going to do anything for you. So if you just take today and say, how am I feeling mentally? How am I doing right now? What's going on? What do I feel is still back there that is just not letting me be happy right now? And being able to take a small step today. So our mental health is critical to our overall well-being. Sometimes we can think past that. Sometimes we can just put dirt on it, keep going. We don't want to bypass things, but I do understand that there are certain times where we just can't dig into everything right now. Maybe you don't have 20 minutes in a day where you can just sit down and play guitar or work on a hobby or go walk outside for a minute or so. Maybe you do. Maybe you have a lot of time. And maybe that's what sort of the problem is, that there's a lot of time and you're unsure of what to do next and you're just kind of stuck with yourself. As we are mentally aware of our mental health, we also need to be aware of what's going on throughout the rest of our lives and start to take inventory of, does that align with us? Again, you may not have 20 minutes a day to be able to just work on some hobby or something that's important to you. So I ask, how do you then find that 20 minutes a day? Because that is really critically important. The better we are mentally, the better we are just in every other way. Now, obviously, our physical body is not always tied to our mental body. You get what I mean. But in all reality, what we do in our head ties into how our physical body moves or doesn't move. There have been times where I've been depressed and I've gone through some really dark moments. Hell, there are times that I've had those dark moments throughout the course of the podcast. You can actually see some of that in how I've looked at different times and just haven't felt good. And I'll use that as a good example. There have been times where I've realized that I'm not feeling good mentally and I'm gaining more weight, and therefore I really don't want to just go work out. And it's like this vicious cycle. I've also learned that there are at times some chemical deficiencies, vitamin deficiencies, some different things that are happening. And I've sought medical help, and at times it's helped. At times it's also just been like, no, everything's good on this end. So there's something else to go through and work through. And for us to actually spend that time with ourselves, as uncomfortable as it can be, to say, okay, this is what I'm feeling right now. Let me just be straight and honest with myself. And then from there, start to figure out, what do you need to do with it? My goal with this show, just overall, and I say this to my guests when they come on, is that for you to get anything out of this, I want you to be able to hear from the authentic side of what we talk about, be it myself or with the guests. Like, we need to get real to the fucking things that have happened and the situations and how we actually handle that. I bring that up because I, at times, have literally pushed things off to let future Nick deal with it. And then future Nick most often gets pissed off at past Nick, because if past Nick just did something about it, future Nick would not have to be dealing with it. Same goes for you. So if you just push things off and just bypass them, they will end up coming back, and then you'll have to work on them at another point. But if you're having a hard time right now working on the things, then I want you to be able to take from this that you're not alone, and to just continue to do the work day in and day out, and things will pop up for you. Resources. Maybe this is a great show for resources for you. People that you can connect with, practitioners, friends that are going through similar things. Sometimes we don't know that until we actually have those conversations. So that's what I want to bring up next. I want you to be able to talk to people that you feel safe to talk to, and also allow yourself to step outside of your comfort zone, because you never know who you can really be safe with in your circles. I do want you to be able to tie into your intuition and understand, hey, this person is definitely not safe to talk to about just about anything. And if there are things that you need to do to process being able to have a conversation with that person, or some things that they've done to you in the past or what have you, then do that work. There are also other people out there that are just waiting for permission for themselves to share as well. And by you opening up how you're doing without dumping onto people, but just sharing, this is where I'm at right now, that'll allow them to then say, you know, I've gone through something similar, or I've been real hesitant to say this to anybody else, but I've been going through this for the past month or 2 months or what have you. And being able to start conversation, and that starts to heal ourselves and those other people. I'll give you an example. A few weeks ago, when this difficult chapter of mine was starting, I was in a tough spot to figure out what are next moves. And next moves may have literally looked like a 1,500, 2,000 mile physical move. And at one point, I was hanging out with a couple of friends. We were talking about some things and just having a really great conversation, great time. And I felt totally overwhelmed. Stole off to my office and had a panic attack. I don't have them very often, but when I do, I've not handled them the best in the past because I didn't exactly know what was going on. I just thought I was shutting down and dying. And if you've had them, you can understand. But this time, I knew what was going on. I knew to step away. I knew to do my breathing. I have a song that I listen to. It's by Marconi Union called Weightless. It's like a 10-hour long song, but it's actually been documented to help relieve anxiety. So I took some time to myself, breathe, let myself calm down, let it work through me, saw eye to eye with it, with what was actually going on. And I was gone for maybe 20 minutes, a half hour. I went back into the spot with my friends, and both of them asked me like, hey man, you all right? Like, you just kind of disappeared. I was like, yeah, I just need to go have a panic attack, but I'm all right now. And I knew that saying this to my friends, they are my friends, but they are relatively newer friends, that there's a chance for them to go, oh, what a little bitch, or whatever. They could have said fucking anything at all about me stealing off to have a panic attack. I'm sure it would have been a little bit of a different thing if I did it right there, but they didn't. They actually opened up a bit about themselves, that they had been going through some things. One guy went through something about a month and a half, 2 months ago. Another one was working on trying to get their anxiety medication that had problems being shipped to them. And that just opened up the conversation. That conversation didn't turn into a 6-hour long kumbaya session. It was maybe another 5-10 minutes before we all got back into the stuff that we were doing and talking about other things and what was going on. But in all reality, the idea that I was able to open the door to that conversation gave permission not only to myself to do it more often, but to those people to be able to do it back and also to be able to pass that along. So in May and the coming months, the more that we are aware of what is going on with our mental health, and the more that we understand what we are at our core, just like I understand at my core, I'm joyous and just naturally curious, then we can start to see how we're off in certain ways. And again, you're not broken, you're just patterned. And we need to be able to break out of those patterns and change those patterns, but also be able to look at what's going on and be aware of those things to then say, all right, well, how do I want to control this? There are times where people have told me you can't really control your mental health, just like there are times where people have said you can't mindset your way through everything. And I agree with both. I also think that both are critically important with how we maneuver ourselves throughout all of life. And I think if we can be understanding of ourselves, we can have an understanding of what's going on and where things come from. We can be aware of those things. We can then start to take actions, whatever that action needs to look like. Sometimes it's a really small action. Sometimes it's a multi-hour deep subconscious processing session. Sometimes it's a mixture. But whatever that looks like, it needs to just look like that for you. So just being aware of your mental health and being aware of the things that are feeling off will then help you then be aware of what are the culprits here and what's the catalyst of that and what do I do from this point. So I want to leave you with a few tactics, in a sense, that have helped me over the course of, I'd say, the past 5-10 years, really managing my mental health and being able to understand how to manage my day-to-day while managing my mental health. First is awareness. If you're not aware of something, you cannot understand what's going on with a thing because you are not aware that it's even there. So awareness is something we can work on. We can be really aware of how we're feeling and what's going on. And I think the easiest way to be able to do that is once we sense something, instead of just pushing past it or bypassing, we can get really, really close to it by going, all right, what's happening right now? What am I feeling right this second? Like literally take the 5, 10, 15 seconds, whatever it is. And if you can't because you're in the middle of a meeting or you're working with your kids or whatever's going on, you can take a mental note of that, maybe even just jot that down in your phone or something and go back to it. Go, all right, well, this happened. What was I feeling? I was feeling this. Why would I feel that? And start to work through it like you would if you were talking to a friend. If you called one of your good friends and said, hey, this situation happened. Can I process this with you? Can you work with me on it? It would go, sure. What happened? Who was there? What was the thing? What did this look like? How did you feel with that? What did you want to do next? Like all of those questions. And this isn't a rule book sort of thing where you have to follow these 5 or 10 questions. Just start to ask yourself the questions. Because the more aware that you become, the more aware you can see the different situations and things that need to happen. And you go, okay, well, I've seen this over and over. I don't like how I feel with it. So what do I do from here? And there are certain things you can do on your own. I have a ton of resources, obviously, within the podcast. There's a ton of stuff on YouTube. There's a ton of stuff everywhere. And then there are practitioners and people that can physically and emotionally, mentally help you with all of this. So awareness is absolutely critical. Another thing that has really helped me is breathing. That might sound really simple because we all do it every single day, but concentrated breathing. Again, when I had my panic attack recently, that was one of the main things that I felt inside of me is you need to concentrate on your breathing. And I've felt that before. And I've even told myself that before. Times where I'll breathe for a few in, a few out or whatever, and just get irritated by it because I've had a hard time just sitting in the spot that I'm in. One of the things that really helps me is simple breathing, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. The way that I do it is I do 5 in, 5 out, 4 in, 4 out, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And by the time I get to the 2 and the 1, it's kind of just in and out, in and out. And then I'll start over again and I'll go a little slower. And I'll do that maybe 2 or 3 times. Literally one, maybe 2 of those cycles is enough to be able to reset us, at least for me. So I'd like you to try that. Get to a point where you're like, I am really at my wit's end. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. 5 in, 5 out, 4 in, 4 out, etc., etc., etc. By the time you get through 1 or 2 of those cycles, you've regulated yourself a bit. You've at least curbed it a little bit. And you get to then be able to move from there. And the last 2 could almost be 1, changing your state and moving your body. Changing your state can look like if you're sitting here having a conversation and something's really upsetting you, or you're having a conversation with yourself, or you're trying to figure out what's going on, don't just stay stuck in that same spot. Literally get up. If you need to go do jumping jacks or run around the building, or just simply walk out of the space and walk back, you start to move your body and you get out of that actual space that you're in. Sometimes it also really helps to literally go move your body. Go work out, go to the gym, go for a bike ride, go do something that's physically exerting to be able to get that energy to move through you a bit, but you don't want to bypass it. So I look at it like this. Now, it may not be super easy for you to do this depending on your schedule, but there are times where I will feel I just need to go move. And I'll go to the gym and I will either do the elliptical because I just need to move and really just get into a rhythm of moving, but still want to spend the time thinking or processing through things. And there are other times where I'll do more weights and then, cardio and stuff. But throughout that whole period, I will allow myself to feel where I'm at and also allow the things to come up that I can then process through them. Or I can say, this is the thing I really need some help with. I need to talk to my mental health practitioner, or I need to talk to my subconscious processing person, or I need to do some EMDR to be able to work through some of these past situations that are then coming up. But by moving our bodies, there are things that are going on. It's also moving blood and oxygen and all of that, which again goes back to what I said earlier. There have been times where I felt depressed, I got heavier, didn't want to work out, and it was just this big cycle. And there are certain things that can be outside of just your mental health. There can be actual physical things that are happening, especially as you get older. And some of those things are newer because you've never been that age, so you don't know. And then you start to kind of learn from there. So moving our bodies and also changing our state, and sometimes simultaneously, can really help us be able to start to work that stuff out of our system. And I found that it also helps us understand if we can process that stuff on our own, or do we need somebody else to be able to help us with this? So appreciate you spending the time to watch or listen to this. And I hope that this has been helpful for you. It is May, and this is when we are to be aware of our mental health. However, my challenge to you is to not just let it be May. Let it be the rest of your life. Take the next month, 2 months, 6 months, etc., to be able to really be honest with yourself and your mental health, and to be aware of what's going on. And if you need to take some steps to speak with somebody, if it's mentoring, I can certainly help. Please feel free to reach out. If you need some practitioner help and want some resources, I'd love to be able to share what I know and be able to point you in the direction. There's also a lot of people I'm sure that you know that can potentially point you in directions that they've used. But for you to be able to figure out what feels right for you and what you want to be able to do takes us to be aware of what's going on. And our mental health is critical to not only our lives, but the lives of the people we live with and work with, and the lives that we touch. So again, thank you for spending your time with me today. I hope this helps. And if you have any questions or you want me to dig deeper into any of this, please let me know. Thanks for listening to today's episode. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts. If you enjoyed the episode, please jump over to Apple Podcasts, YouTube, or wherever you consume podcasts, and subscribe, rate, and leave a 5-star review. It's very much appreciated and also helps other people find the show and experience healing just like us. Please also head over to our website, themindsetandselfmasteryshow.com, where you can check out all of our episodes and find additional resources to help you manage your mindset as you seek self-mastery. So with that, thank you. And remember, your mindset matters, and so do you.